Hey everybody, Crazy John Carrots here with OSH Ready, and tonight, I don't know if I said that right, OSH Radio, see I'm getting bad at even saying my own show. Tonight we're here, with us is Dan Stevens, you pronounce it Stevens?
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And he is with Stained Glass Comics. And now we were talking a little bit on the side first. How long have you been doing the Stained Glass Comics?
So this is going to be my first issue, but I have been working on this for almost 20 years now.
Well, I know some people right now. You are with Starcross Comics is coming out. I know some of the people. I asked you that because some of the people I know have done their comics before coming to Starcross, and so now they're redoing them through Starcross and then adding new ones in. So I know some artists and talent have been doing that. So that's why I asked it that way. And just for people to know, Starcross Comics is a Christian comic book company.
I would say that we are Christians, but our comics are some are just entertaining, some are just good. I mean, just the storylines. It's how I got with Joe Spicer, who's the creator of Starcross. Um, just good content. And we got some of your guys, like you had James on here. I think we got of course Joe and Evan and there's probably about a dozen of us creators just making it happen.
Well, that's great. Now you said we I kind of interrupted you a little bit. You've been working on this stained glass for 20 years, you said?
Yeah, a little bit more. I was in college and took a fiction writing class. And I like to tell stories, but everybody else in the class was doing like Anne of Green Gables and that kind of genre. And it was so boring. And so created this comic about an archangel who a giant battle for a city in which he was defeated. And in doing so, his wings were ripped off and he was forced to walk unglorified to the end of time, which would begin his superhero story. Um, and over the years, I thought, man, this is such a good story. I really could see this going somewhere. This is a comic I want to read. And so I'd get excited. I'd reach out to some people like, hey, if you want artists, you'll have to pay for it. Well, I'm a college kid. I don't have any money. So I reached out to other college kids and they were terrible. So I put it down and sometime later came back up. And so I reached out to the only Christian comic book writer I've ever heard is a guy named Glenn Herdling from Marvel. He did a comic book. It's called The Illuminator. And it was like a late 90s, super cheesy, but he was Marvel. So we got to talking. He was going through what this needs to be. And I was like, I can't do this. That's beyond me. So I put it down. So then all of a sudden, the stories started coming back, and I'd wake up in the middle of the night with these images, these scenes, and started writing them down, and reached out, talked to a couple guys in the industry, and they're like, "This sounds pretty good. You should do this and write these comics and send them to somebody at a church, and they can give them away as handouts." And I'm like, "That is not my audience." Like the comic, I am a Christian, but my comic is so much. It's not just for some kid in a youth group. I bring in people different faiths. The whole thing is revolving around cryptids or the Muslim jinn, a genie, a Jewish golem, a Hindu goddess, Navajo skinwalker. Of course, the archangel, and then the main character, a boy, uh, a young man who kind of has the powers of kind of like the Old Testament prophet sort of stuff, but just really unassuming. All on a team by this technopath or technocrat who just wants his technology to be the next thing. humans' next evolution is going to be to merge with technology. And all these stories kept coming to me. And I'd reach out to a buddy of mine who's living in Israel about what is a story about the golem. I'd reach out to a friend of mine, her husband's from the Democratic Republic of the Congo. Like, can you tell me about this character, what he'd look like, his name, and stuff that's going on? I reached out to some friends of mine at a Navajo reservation. Tell me about the skinwalkers. And she was like, this is not a myth. This is what Navajo believe. Um, and all my characters just started coming together. These stories started coming together, and I met with Joe, and I read through some of his stuff, and he's like, Dan, I don't like your stuff.
Hmm.
Like, okay, well, I'm gonna send you just some stories and see what you like. And he contacted me back, and he's like, Dan, this is good. This is what I'm looking for. And ever since, the Starcross team have helped me. I don't draw. I'm a terrible drawer. In artists in general, I'm just not great at it. So I got somebody to do my characters. I did got somebody which is Gilbert Monsanto, and did all my character sketches. And then I got um, somebody to do my cover. I got Luke Stone to do my artwork, and his colorist Patrick Gamma. And all these pages started coming together, and I wake up still in the middle of the night with these stories coming to me like, man, I can't wait to see what's going to happen next.
Well, it's interesting you say that about being a Christian, then you also talk about how it interacts with other religions. I had somebody point out to me one time about Superman actually is the story of Moses. And the founders of Superman were actually Jewish. And Moses was taken from his family, put on a boat, sailed down the water, and found in the water by somebody else and raised by another family that wasn't his original family. And then when he became mature, he gained powers through God and did amazing things for his people. And it's interesting because when you realize that that was kind of their inspiration, but you didn't know it at first, it's kind of interesting. But a lot of comic books are kind of based on mythology and religion, and people don't necessarily realize it. The superhero, that's kind of what the original superheroes were, mythology and religion a lot of times. And people don't realize that.
Well, even like you said, with the Jewish guys and the two Jewish guys that created Superman, I've always heard that that was their idea of what the Messiah would be like. And he was an archetype. Superman was an archetype. Even the names, his name, those are all names of God. And his parents' names were names of God, the L part, God. Um, but so many superheroes are based on a lot of the Jesus thing. Most heroes back in the day, they weren't dying for somebody. They'd go and they'd fight these big wars, and but and again, Jesus showed that ultimate, and it's an ethic where, like, I look at different superheroes. Why are they fighting? Why are they doing this? Is it just because they have power? Is it like Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility? Is it a revenge? Is it for the greater good? Is it because they feel like they're just supposed to? And so the idea of this archetype where Jesus, if you look at him as a superhero, why did he do it? You have this agape love. I'm doing it not because I'm getting anything in return. I'm just doing this because I love. And it it's something that I think a lot of superheroes, try to figure out what that aspect is. It's not like Hercules, like, look how strong I am, or the biblical thing, Samson. Um, just different superheroes have their different ways. Like, again, Batman, is he actually a hero?
Or is he just a tortured vigilante?
Yeah, which is kind of a villain in his own right.
To some, he could be perceived as a villain. Yeah, that's actually the duality kind of there with him, you know.
Which,
But which
my,
is the bigger villain, Batman or Bruce Wayne? There you go.
well, my daughter, she's 6. Her name's Cambry, and she's gonna marry Batman, so he is a superhero.
Okay, so that's
That's
easy.
that's a truth I can't deny.
There you go. And does she get to ride the purple motorcycle like Batgirl then too? Just saying, that would be a plus.
You know,
But
she's had a Batman birthday and she dressed up as Batman and she's got all the Batman little figures. She's got this one about so big that she has had for the last 4 years. It has broke so many times that it's held together mostly by super glue.
I can believe that. Yeah, it's funny to me too, that old Batman show with Adam West in it, and now you go back and you're watching it. It's hard to watch, but when I was a kid, man, I remember being in kindergarten and we weren't allowed to make the Batman gloves anymore because people would cut the gloves out of newspaper and staple them, and then they'd play fight, but people would get cut with the staples.
Wow.
So they were told to stop making the Batman gloves because you know you could put your hand down, you cut, you have the ridges, you know, and you
Yeah. I'd never seen those before.
that was
I
back
want
in
to
the.
make some.
You want to make some? There you go. But yeah, it's very interesting. So now you're stained glass. Now you got the first issue. When do you expect the first issue to be out exactly?
So I'm starting my Kickstarter in August. So I'll be going in August. Now the actual comic book is a little bit bigger than most. I'm gonna have about 29 pages in the first 3 comics. So they're kind of supersized. I have an artist who will get them done quickly. So as long as I hit everything by September, I should be shipping. So it's what my hope is.
And since you said mention where you're going, what kind of perks are you going to be giving people?
So I've got some different perks. Of course, we're gonna do a web comic. We're gonna do the printed comic. I'm wanting to get cards. I've got characters both for the team as well as villains, and some of these are characters that are not introduced in the first 4 issues that I've currently got printed, but they will be showing up within my 13 issue run. So I'll have a hero set. I'll have a villain set. And I also have a variant cover that I will be having completed as well. And then for my biggest tier, um, I don't write like a comic book. I write it like a novel. And so each issue I write as a chapter. So when I have all of mine completed, I will have a hardback or a paperback.
Graphic novel.
Yes. And so that is going to be the top tier.
Now I got involved. We were talking about other ones with James Newen with his Alpha Red, and I'd known James before from a mutual friend of ours, which has he's passed away, which is sad for both me and James. Uh, but I got involved with him as actually one of his perks was to become someone in his comics. So I am Crazy John, and I'm Crazy John in his comics. Started out that he did a one first issue. He had done a special issue, the first issue that had a advertisement for me and my OSH radio on in the background on the wall advertised, and then after that, I was in as a character. So that's always a nice perk. So if you
That's
need
that's that's a great one.
you need a
James has the benefit of him being an artist. Uh, but that is something that I hadn't thought about. I could definitely make sure that my artist, because I mean, hey, you could be an angel or a demon
well
or
in there he
a
has
cloud person.
I am John the Baptist actually is where I originated. He has a conversation about me looking good now that I had my head back on.
Ooh,
So you know, as John the Baptist got beheaded. So that was kind of interesting. So I'm available, just let you know. But no,
heard.
but it is fun with that. And I don't want to ask you too much about your character. You told us stuff already because we want people to be interested to go and read it. So if you
Yes.
much, so it's the story of a kind of, he's a tortured soul archangel that's now bound to the earth.
Well, and he is actually not the main character.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so main character is going to be a young man named Josh. Throughout the series, they're trying to pin a nickname on him, his code name. What is he going to be called? A very unassuming character in every way. And Joe Spicer was telling me it's harder to draw a skinny guy
Then a muscular
as
guy.
a big muscular guy. Artists want the big muscles. They don't want to see somebody looking all sickly. Um, Josh is going to be the main focus. And it's the whole reason it's called stained glass. Basically, he gets a vision, kind of something just ahead of time, and he has to interpret and do whatever it tells him to do. In doing so, you're going to see some incredible things that he accomplishes. Um, but him and this angel become friends. And this angel, who his name means the sword of the Lord, Sharev Hadan, which means sword of the Lord. And they call him Chevy. And him and this boy just get together, and the angel doesn't understand what's so special about this boy. Um, but as the team watches this kid progress through the story, I mean, they don't know what to think at first, but then they start to understand his authenticity. Um, this is not going to be some like cheesy Christian kid with a big smile on his face all the time, or a kid with a perfect life, or anything like that. And the angel is not going to be this, you know, little fairy woman with flowing robes. And no, his name's the sword of the Lord, and he kills people. In the Bible, it talks about an angel standing over Jerusalem with a sword drawn out, ready to strike the entire city, or killing tens of thousands. And the sword that guarded the Garden of Eden, that was him. And um, when they attack, if they have a sword, they're not going to, like Michelangelo and the Ninja Turtles, knock them out over the head. They're getting stabbed. If they've
Yeah,
got a gun,
you made a
they're getting
good point.
shot.
Don't forget about one of the most ways you see Saint Miguel visualized is with a sword and fighting Satan, and nothing passive there, if you know what I mean. So
Exactly. Exactly. And so this is going to focus on spiritual warfare in a very global sense, but it's also going to, what happens when you put a number of religious zealots in one place? The Jewish guy with the Muslim and the Hindu girl, and I got a character, and basically imagine superhero, MAGA, just extremist that nobody cares for. I mean, it's guns, God, and glory, and he kind of makes himself out to be a prophet. And he was on the team. He gets kicked off. I won't give too much of it, but it's an amazing story, and that's the thing I've heard from guys like Luke Stone is like, I like this character. He actually really liked Skinwalker, the Navajo Skinwalker. Joe Spicer really likes the Crusader. My little girl, she loves Durga, and Durga's wearing these beautiful outfits. She's got four arms and a tail. Um, yeah, it's gonna be amazing.
I think it's interesting that you have the younger man that seems unimposing as the main character, because I think that's what they were trying to do with Captain Marvel, Shazam, since you're not allowed to really call him Captain Marvel anymore. And even Spider-Man, they tried the same thing. What they try to do is give you the show that the open-eyedness of youth can give views that some other people might not see, and a perception. Like you said, Spider-Man. Yeah, he's has to know that with great power comes great responsibility. But originally, Spider-Man was basically a kid,
Yep.
and he's given this, and he has to learn to deal with it. And the whole thing is that he's taking it from a perspective, not of the grown adult that he's the policeman or the army soldier, or like you said, Hercules, the son of a god that goes out on his missions. And it gives it a fresher, different look. And the hope is, like, with Shazam the Wizard, said that Billy Batson, we'll say his name, was he actually embodied what he wanted to have the power. He didn't want something else. He wanted somebody with his youthful outlook, and also I mean, he was an orphan, so he had an outlook like that. But I think it's good when you do that, because it brings a different perspective. And it also shows people that sometimes this different perspective that you might not pay attention to might have a lot of benefits to society and to life. And there's a life lesson there. I think that I think at the root everybody's trying to get to show people. So I think that's a nice point.
Well, and part of it is like, again, a lot of this, it does have a lot of biblical background, but it talks about how the wisdom of, or the foolishness of God is greater than the wisdom of man, and the weakness of God is stronger than the strength of man, and how God uses the weak and the unimportant and the outcast and the lowly, and he uses what's weak to show that it's really him doing it. And I think that's going to play a big part, because it's, so many of the superheroes out there is like, look what I can do. And I think even the artists, as they create them, like, I want to show off every muscle. I want to make them stronger than the next one. I want them to look cooler. And everything else around this guy, all the visuals, again, they look just beautiful. But this kid is going to be kind of standing out as the unassuming, very dullish kind of character who just is what's needed.
And more important than people realize.
And more important, right, right.
But that's a good point. And there's a lot of people out there that might be overlooked by society and stuff that are actually very important, and people don't think about it. So that's a good point. So after how long do you so with the first issue you're hoping to come out, is that, well, how many fundraisers are you planning on having? One for the whole series, or are you going to have some intermittent ones to keep you shall we say, moving along?
Uh, Intermittent, of course, when the first one comes out, and Marvel and DC and Image and all of them want to pick me up, and I'm like, no, no. And Jay Leno, or not
Yeah.
Jay Leno, but all the late shows are like, come on my show. And I'm like, I might have time for it. At that point, I don't think I'll have to do any more fundraising. Um,
I like that. I like that.
but I
That
mean, I've
driving
sold blood, I've sold plasma, I've done whatever I've had to do to get everything going so far. I've put a ton of my own.
civilization mind there.
And you
That's
you have to. And it's like, it's not just a hobby, but I don't have just extra cash just to throw at this and be like, you know what? 20 grand, 25 grand, get it all drawn up and done. And buddy, that's a pretty penny.
well, it sounds to me like this is your life mission here. I think you have a calling for this, and I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm looking forward to it. I'm sure everybody, hopefully, that's watching this and listening to this is going to look forward to that too. Now, I do ask you something. I don't like keeping people on too long because I know everybody loses their interest. Could you send me some of your links that you'd want me to send people to and direct them to, and I will put them down below then when I publish this, which will probably be tomorrow morning. I'll put this up.
Sure
And
enough.
how long do you expect? Maybe what are you looking at? A 4 episode run right now is the main story you have in your head, or how long do you think?
I've got
With
13 stories planned. I've
13.
gotten the first four completely written. I've got the rest mapped out. Um, I just have to start, or have to complete them. So I've got the first four done. Generally, the way these things go, it can take a month and a half to get an issue drawn up, colored and sketched and all the fun stuff, and then to get it out. But again, I've I've got about 13 issues slash chapters for the story. And this is only the first arc. There's going to be more after this.
That's interesting. Now, the number 13, did you pick that for a reason, or is that just the way it happened?
Just the way it happened. I try to keep it at 12 because 12 is a good number, but right now it's 13. And technically some of the guys are telling me that the first issue I have, it could even be an issue 0 because it's kind of giving a little bit a big story to a second character.
Some people do the 0 issue, but it might, maybe the first run's supposed to be 13 for a reason.
Maybe.
Just like the fact that this has been eating at you for 20 years. I have to admit, I had a book that was eating at me. I'd started, put it down, started, put it down. And I'd written other books in the interim, like self-help books, like here's a quote for the day to think about and meditate on. And I had done a self-defense book that was used for some colleges. But I still had this science fiction type book I wanted to do. And I finally got it done, but I'll tell you how I got it done. I did it as youth books, and I did 3 chapters, 3 different youth chapter books. And then what I did was I came back and I revamped those 3 books more adult, and then knew what would have been a 4th book, and then packaged that as the whole book. And that's how I finally wrote the book I wanted to, but I kind of did it in sections and build up to it, because I'd never written that long a book all at once. So I didn't do it again. I just wrote it in chapters, upgraded it, and added another chapter. And then sometimes, that works. Like you said about putting this all into one big graphic novel at the end, that I guess that would be the whole story arc. Then it'll be in the graphic novel.
Yes.
And that is a nice, great way to do it, because it is easier on the creative also. And I think it helps you weave your idea a little better as you experience it. Sometimes things are still following the path, but they kind of diverge a little bit as you see it forming. You know what I mean? And it's great to do. But I'm looking forward to this, Dan, and this will be great. Now, how many titles does Starcross have now? They have like a handful of different titles now, don't they?
I want to say we've got about a dozen creators. And I want to say we have about 15 or 16 different titles.
15
Some of the guys have got multiple titles out there. I'm pulling them up right now to see if I can give you an exact number. And you can find that at starcross.com.
And they do some
Starcross Comics.
Crossovers within themselves. I think they've even done some crossovers with other Christian comic book companies, I believe, sometimes. Not
Yes.
the ones. So they're a good.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just saying they're a good company.
They're a great company. We just have a brand new one, Biblical Proportions 2, I think, is just come out. Biblical Proportions 1 is a 1 crossover. 2, of course, is a second. We've got some other crossovers. So starcrosscomics.com, you can find those titles, see which one really fits you. But again, there's some solid stories.
I've read my friend James Newen, and I've read some of the other ones since he joined with them, and they were pretty good. I liked them. And I'm going to read yours when it comes out too. Hopefully I'll be involved with the funding, and I'm looking forward to it. So I tell you what, Dan, in closing, would you want to say anything to anybody listening out there?
Yes, thank you. Hey, so first of all, I just want to say thanks, John. You're awesome. I appreciate you letting me on.
Thank you for being on and telling us about your great new comic book coming out.
I appreciate it. Other than that, again, this comic is going to be something. It's different. It's not going to be something that you're going to pick up and look like any of the other series in the comic book store. So give it a look. It's going to be a lot deeper. I really worked hard on getting my characters' depth. and the story is just going to pull you, and you know, when it's all said and done and who's still alive and who's not, it's gonna be a pretty solid story. So guys, just check it out. I'll be throwing updates. I got Facebook, Instagram, look for Stained Glass Comics, and I'll be getting new stuff out as soon as I get it.
Well, thanks again, Dan, and for everybody. Dan Stevens, Stained Glass Comics, and hopefully, I tell you what, I hope to interview you again after the comics come out, and we'll see how things are going, and hopefully, I'm sure everything will be going great. Thank you,
That's
Dan.
gonna be awesome. All right, thank you. We'll talk to you later, John.